Homeless woman and her daughters slept on the streets until a billionaire recognized her. What happened next left everyone speechless. Ethan Caldwell walked through the bustling streets of Seattle, the sun casting a warm glow on the city. The sounds of laughter, chatter, and the distant clamor of street musicians blended into a symphony that usually brought him joy. Yet, today was different. He felt a gnawing emptiness in his chest, a hollowness that no amount of success or wealth could fill. As he passed by storefronts displaying the latest fashions and gourmet coffee shops, he couldn't shake the feeling of disconnection. He was surrounded by luxury, yet it felt like a shimmering facade that concealed a deeper void within him. As he strolled through a small park, Ethan's attention was drawn to a scene that made his heart skip a beat. There, sitting on the grass, was a woman he had not seen in years. Clara. She was holding the hands of two little girls, their laughter ringing out like music. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as memories flooded back, memories of stolen kisses, whispered promises, and a love that had once burned brightly. He hesitated for a moment, watching her. Clara's hair was pulled back, and the lines on her face told stories of hardship and resilience. The laughter of her daughters contrasted sharply with the weariness etched on her features, and it stirred something deep within him. "Clara," he called out tentatively, not sure if she would recognize him after all this time. She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. For a fleeting moment, her expression flickered with joy, but it quickly morphed into something heavier, a cocktail of emotions that included shock, pain, and a hint of nostalgia. "Ethan," she replied, her voice a soft whisper that barely carried over the sound of the park. The air between them crackled with unspoken words. Ethan took a few tentative steps closer, his heart pounding in his chest. "It's been a long time," he said, trying to mask the vulnerability in his voice. "Yes, it has," Clara replied, her gaze shifting to the ground as if she were weighed down by the passage of time and the choices they had made. How have you been?" Ethan's mind raced as he contemplated how to answer. He could tell her about his successful business ventures, the high-rise apartment overlooking the Space Needle, and the glamorous parties he attended. But those things felt shallow in that moment. "I've been good, I guess. Busy with work," he finally replied, his voice faltering. "And you?" "I've heard things about you." Clara's eyes darkened, and she clenched her daughter's hands a little tighter. "Things? What things?" she asked, her tone defensive. "Just. I mean, I know it hasn't been easy for you," he said carefully, gauging her reaction. "I've seen you in the news." "News?" she scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "You mean the stories? The ones that paint me as some kind of failure?" Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Ethan felt a pang of regret for bringing it up. "No, that's not what I meant," he rushed to explain. I'm worried about you. I didn't know if you needed help or anything." Clara took a deep breath, visibly struggling with her emotions. "Help? From you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Ethan, you don't know what it's like. I can't rely on anyone anymore. Not after everything." Ethan felt a surge of frustration mixed with helplessness. "Clara, I'm here now. I want to help. You don't have to go through this alone." She looked up at him, her expression a mix of disbelief and pain. "You think it's that easy? You think you can just waltz back into my life and fix everything?" He opened his mouth to respond but found himself at a loss for words. The reality of the situation settled heavily around them, and all he could do was feel the weight of her gaze, a gaze that flickered between longing and fear. There they stood, two shadows of their former selves, caught in a moment that felt both like a reunion and a reckoning. Ethan stood before Clara, the sunlight filtering through the leaves of the nearby trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground. The moment felt surreal, as if time had folded back on itself. He searched her face, looking for the girl he once knew, the one who had stolen his heart so many years ago. But the years had etched lines of hardship across her brow, and her eyes, once bright with youthful innocence, now held the weight of untold struggles. How have you been, Clara?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he feared disturbing the fragile moment. Clara hesitated, her gaze shifting to her daughters, who were playing a few feet away. Their laughter felt like a haunting reminder of the life they could have shared. It's not what I expected," she finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "Life has a way of throwing curveballs." Ethan's heart sank. He knew this was not the reply he wanted to hear. "I can only imagine," he replied, trying to keep his tone light, but the gravity of her words hung heavy in the air. "What happened?" Clara looked down, tracing her fingers over the worn fabric of her jeans. "After you left, I thought I could manage on my own. But things didn't turn out as I planned." She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "I was with someone. Someone who seemed perfect at first. But he turned out to be different." Ethan's chest tightened at her words. "Different how?" Her eyes met his, and he saw a flash of pain. Jake was charming and ambitious, but he became controlling. "It started with little things: what I wore, who I talked to. Then it escalated." She paused, swallowing hard. "I felt trapped, Ethan. I thought I could make it work for the sake of the girls." "Clara, Ethan began, but she cut him off, her voice rising with emotion. Please, don't say anything. I made my choices, and I have to live with them." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, he saw the girl he once knew, the one who had always been so full of life. "I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to hold our family together. But I was wrong." Ethan felt a surge of anger. "You shouldn't have to face this alone. Why didn't you call me? I would have helped you," he insisted, his voice firm. "I didn't want to drag you back into my mess," Clara replied, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You had your life, your success. I didn't want to burden you with my problems." "Burden?" Ethan echoed, incredulous. "Clara, you're not a burden. You're someone I care about. Always have." The vulnerability in his voice surprised him, but it was true. His feelings for her had never really faded. She looked away, her throat tightening. "And what about the life you built? You have everything, Ethan. I can't just jump back into that world. It's not fair to you." "Fair?" He scoffed, clenching his fists. "What's fair is that you deserve to be happy, Clara. You deserve to be safe." "I'm not sure I know what happiness looks like anymore," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm afraid of what Jake might do if he finds out I'm talking to you. He doesn't let go easily." Ethan's heart raced as he felt the weight of her words. "What does he want?" Clara's silence spoke volumes. She finally met his gaze, and he could see the fear lurking beneath the surface. "He wants control. And if I try to leave, I'm afraid he'll retaliate. I can't put the girls in danger." His anger flared again, this time directed at Jake. "You're stronger than you think, Clara. You're not alone. Not anymore." Her eyes softened, and for a brief moment, hope flickered within her. I don't want to let you down again." "Then don't," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "Let me help you. Please." Clara's expression wavered between gratitude and fear, a blend that left Ethan feeling helpless. He wanted to pull her into his arms, to promise her that everything would be okay, but he knew that words were just that, words. The reality of her situation was far more complicated than any promise he could make. Clara sat on the park bench, her fingers intertwined with her daughters, watching them play. The laughter of Lily and Emma floated through the air, a sound that once warmed her heart but now felt like a bittersweet reminder of her struggles. She turned her gaze to the ground, her thoughts heavy with the weight of her life's choices. Just then, Ethan approached, his presence stirring up a whirlwind of memories and emotions. "Clara," he said softly, his voice almost hesitant as if afraid to disturb the fragile moment. She looked up, her heart racing. His well-groomed appearance and confident demeanor contrasted sharply with the disarray of her own life. "Ethan," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's been a while." "Yeah, it has," he said, taking a seat on the edge of the bench. The distance between them felt vast, filled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. "How are you?" Clara hesitated, her mind racing. How could she explain the chaos that engulfed her life? "I'm managing," she said finally, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Managing?" Ethan echoed, his brow furrowing. "It doesn't look like that to me." He glanced at her daughters playing, their laughter momentarily lifting the heaviness in the air. "They're beautiful." "They are," she said, pride mingling with pain. "They're the best part of my life, but it's hard. I didn't think it would be this tough." Ethan's expression softened. "What do you mean?" Clara looked away, her gaze drifting to the ground. "Their father. Jake, he's not a good man. He's abusive. I thought I could escape him, but he doesn't let go that easily." Ethan's fists clenched involuntarily, anger surging through him. "I had no idea," he said, his voice low and filled with concern. "Why didn't you tell me? You shouldn't have to go through this alone." "I didn't want to burden you," she replied, her voice trembling. "You've built this incredible life, and I didn't want to drag you into my mess." "Clara," he said, leaning closer, "you're not a burden. You never were. I cared about you then, and I still do. You deserve help, not to suffer in silence." She sighed, the weight of guilt pressing down on her. "I left you, Ethan. I made my choices. I thought I was doing what was best for both of us." "Maybe," he replied, his tone firm yet gentle. "But that doesn't mean you should face this alone. Let me help you." Clara shook her head, a flicker of defiance igniting within her. "No. I can't be dependent on anyone again. I need to prove to myself that I can do this." Ethan's frustration bubbled to the surface. "You're not weak for accepting help, Clara. It takes strength to admit when you need support." She could sense the sincerity in his voice, yet fear gripped her heart. "What if I can't handle it? What if I mess everything up again?" "Then we'll figure it out together," he said, his eyes locking onto hers with unwavering determination. "I won't let you go through this alone." Clara's heart raced at his words. A part of her yearned for that support, for that connection she once had with Ethan, but the scars of her past held her back. She glanced at her daughters, who were blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in their lives. "I have to think about them first. They need stability." "Of course they do," Ethan agreed, his voice softening. "But isn't that why you need help? You can't do it all by yourself." Clara bit her lip, feeling the internal battle raging within her. "I don't want to drag you into my chaos, Ethan. You have your life, your business. I'm just a single mother trying to survive." "Maybe I want to be part of that chaos," he replied, a hint of desperation in his voice. "I care about you, Clara. I want to help you and your girls." Tears pricked at Clara's eyes as she absorbed his words. For a moment, the walls she had built around herself faltered, but the fear of vulnerability pushed them back up. "I need to think. I can't make any promises right now." Ethan nodded, understanding the depth of her hesitation. "I get it. Just know that I'm here, whenever you're ready." As she watched him walk away, Clara felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The prospect of help was enticing, but the fear of repeating her past mistakes loomed large. She looked at Lily and Emma, their laughter filling the air, and knew that whatever path she chose, she had to protect them first and foremost. Ethan returned home with a heavy heart, the weight of his encounter with Clara lingering in his mind. The opulence of his mansion felt hollow, the extravagant decor and luxurious furnishings unable to fill the emptiness he had felt for years. He paced through the grand hallway, his mother's voice echoing in the back of his mind. She had been pressuring him for weeks to get involved with someone from high society, a woman who would look good on his arm at galas and charity events. But no one else seemed to matter, all he could think about was Clara. As he walked into the living room, his mother, Eleanor Caldwell, sat elegantly on the plush sofa, flipping through a magazine. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting a warm glow on her perfectly styled hair. She looked up, her brow furrowing slightly as she noticed Ethan's distracted demeanor. "Ethan, darling, you've been so distant lately. Have you thought any more about that lovely lady I introduced you to at the charity auction?" she asked, her tone laced with concern. "Not really, Mom," he replied, his voice lacking enthusiasm. He leaned against the fireplace mantel, crossing his arms defensively. "I've got other things on my mind." "Other things? Like what?" "You're not still hung up on that girl from your past, are you?" Eleanor's eyes narrowed, a mixture of disbelief and irritation crossing her features. "It's not about being hung up. It's complicated," Ethan said, running a hand through his hair, frustration rising within him. "Clara is in trouble. I can't just forget about her." Eleanor sighed, placing her magazine aside. "Ethan, you have to move on. That chapter of your life is over. You're a successful man now, and you deserve someone who can match your status. Someone like you." Ethan shot back, unable to hide the sarcasm in his voice. "I don't want a trophy wife, Mom. I want someone who understands me." Meanwhile, Clara sat in her small, cluttered apartment, her two daughters playing quietly in the corner. She couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety that had settled in her chest since her chance encounter with Ethan. After all these years, seeing him again had stirred up emotions she thought she had buried. "Mom, are you okay?" Sarah, her oldest daughter, asked, looking up from her coloring book. "You look sad." Clara forced a smile, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking about some things." "Is it about that man? The one who looked like a prince?" Sarah inquired, her innocent curiosity probing deeper. Clara's heart sank. "It's complicated, honey. He's someone from my past." "Do you still love him?" Sarah pressed, her wide eyes searching Clara's face for answers. Clara hesitated, the truth weighing heavily on her. "I don't know, Sarah. Love is tricky. What matters is that we're okay, you and your sister." Just then, her younger daughter, Lily, chimed in, "But you deserve to be happy, Mommy. Like the princesses in the stories." Clara chuckled softly, ruffling Lily's hair. "You're right, sweetie. Everyone deserves happiness." But as she looked out of the window at the bustling city, her mind drifted back to the past, to the dreams she once had and the life she had hoped for. Later that evening, Clara confided in Sarah. As they sat on the couch. "I ran into Ethan today, and it was overwhelming. He's so successful now. I feel like I'm stuck." "Mom, you're not stuck. You're doing the best you can for us," Sarah reassured her, her young voice steady. "But if you love him, why not talk to him?" I can't drag him into my mess. What if I just end up hurting him again?" Clara's voice trembled with fear. "Mom, you deserve to be happy. You've sacrificed so much for us," Sarah said, her tone firm. "If he can help you, why not let him?" Clara sighed, her heart heavy with indecision. "I just worry about the future, about what might happen if I let someone in again. Especially someone like Ethan. Maybe he can help with that too, Sarah suggested, her innocent wisdom shining through. Clara looked at her daughter, a mixture of pride and fear swelling within her. She wanted to be brave, to embrace the possibility of happiness, but the scars of her past held her back. She leaned against the couch, lost in thought, knowing that the decision she faced could change everything. Clara sat on the edge of her bed, her heart racing as she scrolled through her phone. The sunlight streaming through the window felt warm, yet it couldn't penetrate the chill that had settled in her bones. Each ring of her phone sent jolts of anxiety through her. She had just reunited with Ethan, and the memories of their past flooded her mind. But the joy was short-lived, the weight of her current reality loomed heavy, and she couldn't shake the feeling that danger was lurking just around the corner. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. It was Sarah, her closest friend and confidant. "Clara, are you okay? You look pale," Sarah said, stepping into the room. "I'm fine," Clara replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just tired." "Don't give me that. I know you better than that. What's going on? Is it about Ethan?" Sarah pressed, concern etched on her face. Clara sighed, running a hand through her hair. "It's complicated. I thought I could handle seeing him again, but now I'm not so sure. You know how it is with Jake." Sarah's expression shifted from concern to empathy. "Is he back in town?" "Clara, you need to be careful. You know how unpredictable he can be." Clara nodded, swallowing hard. "I heard he might be. I can't let him find me. Or the girls." The thought of Jake's return sent a wave of nausea through her, and she felt the walls closing in around her. Meanwhile, across town, Ethan was grappling with his own demons. The moment he heard about Jake's potential return, a surge of protectiveness ignited within him. He remembered Clara's haunted eyes, the way she spoke about her past, and his heart ached for the woman he had once loved so deeply. He couldn't sit idly by while she was in danger. Determined, Ethan drove to Clara's house. He parked a little distance away, collecting his thoughts. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows that danced ominously around him. Taking a deep breath, he approached her front door and knocked. Clara opened the door, her face betraying a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Ethan," she breathed, stepping aside to let him in. "Hey," he said softly, scanning the room for any signs of distress. "I heard about Jake. I came to see if you're okay." "I'm fine," she insisted, but the tremor in her voice told him otherwise. "Clara, we both know that's not true. You don't have to pretend with me," Ethan said, his tone firm yet gentle. "I'm here to help. Please, let me help you." She hesitated, her eyes darting away as if searching for an escape. "I don't want to drag you into this. You've worked so hard to build your life. I can't be the reason you lose everything. Clara, you're not a burden. You're..." He paused, searching for the right words. "You're someone I care about, and I'm not going to let you face this alone." Tears welled in Clara's eyes as she fought against her emotions. "You don't understand. Jake. He's dangerous. He's hurt me before, and I can't let him get to the girls. I can't risk their safety." Ethan took a step closer, his gaze steady. "We'll figure it out together. You don't have to face him alone. I can help you protect them." Clara shook her head, stepping back. "No, you don't get it. I can't become dependent on anyone again. I won't let myself fall back into that trap. I can't risk it." Ethan felt frustration bubbling within him. "Clara, this isn't about dependency. It's about survival. You're not in this alone anymore, I'm here. Just let me be here for you." She looked at him, vulnerability etched on her face. "What if Jake comes after you too? I can't let that happen. I can't lose you again." "I'm not going anywhere," he replied, his voice steady. "I promise," I'll do whatever it takes to keep you and the girls safe. You're not alone in this fight." As he watched her struggle with the decision, Ethan felt a surge of determination. He couldn't let fear dictate their lives any longer. Clara deserved to feel safe, to have a chance at happiness, and he was willing to stand by her side, no matter the cost. Clara took a deep breath, her resolve wavering. I don't know," she whispered, uncertainty flooding her eyes. Ethan stepped closer, reaching out to gently touch her arm. "Just think about it. You deserve to have someone in your corner. Let me be that person." For a moment, the weight of her fears hung in the air between them, but Clara could feel the warmth of Ethan's presence, the promise of protection and understanding. Perhaps, just perhaps, it was time to let someone in again. Ethan stood in the small living room of Clara's modest apartment, the faint sound of the city filtering through the open window. The sunlight poured in, casting warm patterns on the floor, but the atmosphere felt heavy with unspoken words and lingering fears. Clara sat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, the tension in her posture mirroring the storm of emotions swirling inside her. "Clara," Ethan began, his voice steady but laced with concern, "I promise you, I'll be here for you and the girls. You don't have to face this alone anymore." He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers for the reassurance he desperately needed. Clara looked up, her blue eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Ethan, I appreciate that, I really do," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't just accept your help. I don't want to be a burden. I can't afford to rely on anyone again, especially not you." Frustration bubbled beneath Ethan's calm exterior. "You're not a burden, Clara. You're one of the strongest people I know. But you're in a situation that's dangerous, and I can help you. Please, let me." She shook her head, her curls bouncing slightly. "You don't know what it's like. Jake. He's unpredictable. I can't risk putting you in danger. I've already lost so much, I can't lose you too." Ethan felt a pang in his chest at her words. "You won't lose me. That's not going to happen. We can figure this out together. You and the girls deserve to feel safe." Clara's gaze fell to the floor, her thoughts racing. "What if I can't protect them? What if he finds out you're helping us?" "I can't let anything happen to them," she said, her voice trembling with the weight of her fears. Taking a deep breath, Ethan knelt in front of her, bringing himself to her level. "Then let me help you protect them. We can set up a plan, talk to the authorities if we need to. But you have to let me in, Clara. You can't shut me out again." For a moment, silence enveloped them, the only sound the distant hum of Seattle's bustling streets. Clara felt her resolve wavering, the warmth radiating from Ethan's presence igniting a flicker of hope buried deep within her. "I don't know if I can," she finally admitted, her voice choked with emotion. "You can," he insisted softly, reaching out to gently place his hand over hers. "You've done everything on your own for so long. Now it's time to let someone else share that burden, to help carry that weight." A tear slipped down Clara's cheek, and she wiped it away angrily, as if to banish the vulnerability that threatened to overwhelm her. "It's just. I feel so guilty. Because I chose to leave you, and now I'm dragging you back into my mess." Ethan's heart ached at her admission. "You were trying to do what was best for both of us at that time. We can't change the past, Clara, but we can build a future. You deserve happiness, and so do your daughters." Clara's defenses began to crumble as she absorbed his words. "You really mean that?" she whispered, looking into his eyes, searching for sincerity. "More than anything," Ethan replied, his voice firm yet tender. "You're worth fighting for. You and your girls." After a long pause, Clara took a shaky breath and nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll try. But I'm scared, Ethan. I don't want to get hurt again." Ethan squeezed her hand reassuringly. "I'll be right here with you, I promise." We'll take it one step at a time. As Clara finally allowed herself to lean into his support, a flicker of hope ignited between them. Together, they began to outline a plan to ensure the safety of her daughters, the weight of their shared burden slowly lifting as the connection between them deepened. In that moment, amidst the chaos of their past, they found strength in each other, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ethan and Clara spent the afternoon at the park, the sun casting a warm glow over the green expanse. Laughter echoed around them as Clara's daughters, Lily and Emma, chased each other, their giggles ringing in the air. Ethan watched, a smile creeping onto his face as he took in the innocent joy of the girls. He had forgotten how refreshing it was to witness such simple happiness, far removed from the high-stakes world of business meetings and lavish dinners that filled his daily life. "Look, Uncle Ethan!" Lily shouted, running over with Emma hot on her heels. "Watch us." "All right, I'm watching," Ethan replied, kneeling down to their level. "What do you want to show me?" "We can jump from this bench to the grass. It's like a super jump," Emma declared, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Super jump, you say? Sounds dangerous," Ethan teased, raising an eyebrow. "I need to see some serious skills if I'm going to let you jump." Clara stood a few steps away, leaning against a tree, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and happiness. Watching Ethan bond with her daughters made her feel a warmth she hadn't experienced in years. He was different now, more grounded, yet still possessing that boyish charm that had captivated her all those years ago. "Okay, on 3. Ethan called out, counting down with exaggerated enthusiasm. 1, 2, 3. The girls leapt from the bench, landing in a heap of giggles on the grass. Clara couldn't help but laugh along with them, the sound ringing like music in her ears. But beneath her laughter, a shadow loomed. The threat of Jake, her ex-partner, lingered just outside her consciousness like a dark cloud, threatening to rain on her newfound happiness. As the girls continued their game, Ethan turned to Clara, his expression shifting from playful to serious. "You know, they're really amazing. You're doing a great job with them," he said, sincerity in his voice. Clara looked down, picking at the grass beneath her feet. "I try, but some days it feels like I'm just barely keeping it together," she confessed, vulnerability creeping into her tone. "Every day is a challenge, especially now with Jake back in town." Ethan's expression hardened at the mention of Jake. "You shouldn't have to face that alone, Clara. I want to help," he insisted, his resolve evident. "I appreciate it, Ethan, but I can't rely on you." "I don't want to pull you into my mess," Clara replied, her voice trembling slightly. "What if it puts you in danger?" "Danger? I've faced worse in the boardroom," Ethan said, trying to lighten the mood. But the truth was, he felt a deep-rooted protectiveness for Clara and her daughters that he had never experienced before. "I'm not some fragile millionaire who can't handle a little confrontation." Clara shook her head, a mix of fear and pride swirling within her. "It's not just a confrontation, Ethan. It's my life. I don't want to drag you into this." Ethan stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "You're not dragging me into anything. I want to be here for you. Just let me." In that moment, Clara felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly extinguished by her fears. What if things go wrong? What if Jake retaliates? "I can't put my daughters at risk. They're already at risk just by having him in your life." "You need to take a stand," Ethan urged, his voice firm yet gentle. "Let me help you protect them." Clara stared into Ethan's eyes, searching for any sign of hesitation. Instead, she found a depth of sincerity that made her heart race. I don't want to become dependent again. I don't want to feel weak." "You're not weak for asking for help," Ethan replied softly. "Strength comes in many forms, and sometimes it takes more strength to lean on someone else." Her heart pounded as a wave of emotion swept over her. The connection they shared felt like a fragile thread, and she wondered if she could trust him not to break it. Finally, she sighed, the weight of her decision heavy on her shoulders. Okay. Just promise me you'll be careful. Ethan smiled, relief washing over him. I promise. We'll figure this out together. As the girls called for them to join in their game, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she had stepped onto a path that could lead to either salvation or heartbreak. But for that moment, under the sunlit Seattle sky, she chose to embrace the warmth of the connection she once thought lost, knowing that together, they might just find their way through the darkness. Ethan stood across the street from the coffee shop, his heart racing as he watched Clara and her daughters inside. The warmth of the afternoon sun was a stark contrast to the cold knot of anxiety in his stomach. He had promised Clara he would protect her, yet as he spotted Jake entering the cafe, the sense of impending confrontation loomed over him like a dark cloud. Jake sauntered in, his presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. Clara's face paled at the sight of him, and Ethan could see her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. He felt a surge of anger rise within him, an instinctive urge to shield her from the threat that loomed in front of them. He took a step forward, ready to confront the man who had caused Clara so much pain, but Clara's eyes met his and held him back. Ethan, don't, she whispered urgently, her voice a mix of fear and determination. Please, just stay out of this. I can't just watch him intimidate you, Clara, Ethan replied, his voice low but firm. You don't have to face him alone. She shook her head, a flicker of defiance igniting in her gaze. You don't understand. He's unpredictable. If you confront him, it could make things worse. But Ethan couldn't stand by any longer. He had spent too much time feeling powerless, and now that he was here, he wouldn't let fear dictate their lives. I'm not afraid of him, he said, taking a deep breath to steady himself. You shouldn't be either. As they exchanged glances, the tension thickened. Jake had spotted them, his lips curling into a smug grin as he approached their table. Look who we have here, he drawled, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The happy family reunited. How quaint. Clara's body stiffened, and Ethan could feel her fear radiating off her. Jake, you need to leave, she said, her voice trembling slightly despite her effort to sound strong. You're not welcome here. Oh, I'm just getting started, Jake replied. Leaning closer, his eyes narrowing. You think you can just move on like nothing happened? You think you can keep your little girls safe with him? He gestured towards Ethan, his tone mocking. You really think he can protect you? Ethan stepped forward, his fists clenching at his sides. You don't have any power here, Jake. Leave Clara and her daughters alone. You're not welcome in their lives anymore. Jake laughed, a harsh, cold sound that sent shivers down Ethan's spine. And what are you going to do about it? Play the knight in shining armor? You're just a rich boy trying to play hero. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Clara's eyes darted between Ethan and Jake, her heart racing as she sensed the danger escalating. Enough, she finally shouted, her voice rising above their tension. I'm done being afraid of you, Jake. You don't control me anymore. Ethan was taken aback by her sudden burst of courage. He felt a swell of admiration for her, but he also noticed the fear lingering in her eyes. Clara, are you sure? He asked, wanting to ensure she felt safe in this moment. Yes, she affirmed, her voice steadier now. I won't let him intimidate me. Not again. Jake's expression shifted, a flicker of surprise crossing his face at Clara's newfound strength. You think you can just stand there and defy me? You have no idea what I can do. I know exactly what you can do, Clara shot back, her voice unwavering. And I'm done letting you dictate my life. You're nothing but a coward hiding behind threats. Ethan felt a rush of pride for Clara as she stood her ground. It was a pivotal moment, one that shifted the balance of power. Jake hesitated, the bravado slipping from his demeanor. You'll regret this, Clara, he spat, turning on his heel, his threats lingering in the air like a dark shadow. As he walked away, Clara turned to Ethan, her eyes wide with a mix of relief and disbelief. "I can't believe I actually said that," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan stepped closer, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, offering both comfort and support. "You were amazing," he said softly. "You took back your power. I'm proud of you." Clara leaned into him, grateful for his presence, knowing that together they could confront whatever challenges lay ahead. In that moment, as they faced the remnants of Jake's threats, a newfound strength blossomed between them, binding them closer than ever before. As the police sirens wailed in the distance, Ethan held Clara close, their breaths heavy with adrenaline. The confrontation with Jake had left them both shaken, but there was an unspoken bond that now tied them together stronger than ever. Clara's heart raced as she watched the officers escort Jake away, handcuffed and seething with rage. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked, his voice a low murmur, filled with concern. He brushed a strand of hair away from her face, his thumb lingering on her cheek. Clara nodded, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her. "I didn't think he would come back," she whispered, her eyes darting to the squad car as it drove Jake away. "I thought I was free from him." Ethan clenched his jaw, the anger still boiling within him. "You are free now. He won't hurt you again." He glanced around, ensuring they were safe, but the shadows of the past still loomed large. "But we need to be careful. He won't take this lightly." "I know," Clara sighed, her voice trembling. "He's unpredictable, Ethan. His threats. They linger in my mind. What if he finds a way to come back? Then I'll be right here," he vowed, his gaze steady and fierce. "You're not alone in this anymore. We'll figure it out together." As the last of the police officers finished their report, Ethan felt a wave of realization wash over him. This was more than just a physical confrontation, it was a turning point in their lives. He had spent years building a wall around his heart, but now, standing beside Clara, he felt that wall beginning to crumble. "Thank you," Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I would have done without you." She looked up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You saved me." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, feeling a mix of relief and confusion. "I didn't do it for thanks, Clara. I couldn't let him hurt you again." He paused, searching for the right words. "What happened back there? It made me realize how much I've missed you. How much I care." The vulnerability in his confession hung in the air between them, palpable and raw. Clara's heart raced at his admission, but fear crept back in. "Ethan, before she could finish, he interrupted, "Please, just hear me out. I know things are complicated, and I don't want to rush you. But I need you to know that I'm here for you. I want to help you and your girls. I want to be a part of your life again." Clara looked down, guilt washing over her. "What if I can't give you what you want? What if I'm still too broken from everything that's happened?" Ethan stepped closer, his voice softening. "We're all a little broken, Clara. But that doesn't mean we can't heal together. You deserve happiness. Your girls deserve a stable life. Don't you want that for them?" She nodded slowly, her heart aching with the weight of her choices. "I do. But I'm scared, Ethan. Scared that if I let you in, I'll lose you all over again." "You won't lose me." "Not this time," he promised, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. "I'm not going anywhere." The sincerity in his voice broke through her defenses, and for the first time in a long time, Clara felt a flicker of hope. But just as quickly, the reality of their situation crashed down on her. What if Jake gets out? What if he comes back for revenge, she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan's expression hardened. "Then we'll deal with it together. I won't let him hurt you again, Clara. I refuse to sit back and watch you suffer." She took a deep breath, the weight of his words settling in. I know you mean that, Ethan. But I have to think about my girls. They've been through so much already. Then let's make sure they don't have to go through any more, he said, determination etched on his face. We can create a plan, involve the authorities, whatever it takes. You're not alone, Clara. Not anymore. As they stood there, side by side, the chaos of the night began to fade into the background. Clara felt a warmth spreading through her, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to experience in years. But beneath that warmth lay a deep-rooted fear of what was to come. Ethan's gaze softened, and he reached for her hand. Clara, no matter what happens, I'm here. We'll face this together. The sincerity in his voice wrapped around her like a lifeline. Clara squeezed his hand, allowing herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way through the darkness together. As the sun dipped below the Seattle skyline, casting long shadows across the streets, Clara sat at her kitchen table, her heart racing as she stared at her phone. The message from Jake had been brief but menacing, I'm out. You can't hide from me forever. The words felt like ice sliding down her spine, and her hands trembled as she set the phone down. Mom, is everything okay? Lily, her eldest daughter, peeked into the room, concern etched on her young face. Clara quickly masked her fear with a smile, but the worry in her eyes betrayed her. Of course, sweetie. Just a little tired, Clara replied, forcing her voice to sound light. She could hear the faint giggles of her younger daughter, Emma, playing in the living room, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just outside their door. Meanwhile, Ethan paced in his opulent living room, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He had always been a man of action, but this felt different. He couldn't shake the feeling that Clara needed him, not just as a former lover, but as a protector. I can't let this go on, he muttered to himself, his mind racing. I have to confront him. He picked up his phone, dialing Clara's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice strained but steady. Ethan, is everything all right? I need to talk to you. It's about Jake, he said, urgency lacing his tone. Jake? What do you mean? Clara's voice turned defensive, as if she was bracing herself for a fight. I received some information that he's out. He's threatening you again, Ethan replied, his heart pounding. I want to meet him. I want to settle this once and for all. Ethan, no. You can't put yourself in danger like this. Clara exclaimed, panic flooding her words. He might hurt you, and I can't let that happen. I can't just stand by and do nothing, Clara. You and the girls are everything to me. I won't let him destroy what little peace you have left, Ethan insisted, his resolve hardening. Clara fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. You don't understand, Ethan. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about my girls. I can't let them see anything happen to you. Then let's meet somewhere safe. We can figure out a plan. After a long pause, Clara finally relented. Fine. But you have to promise me you'll be careful. Ethan agreed, and they arranged to meet at a secluded park near Clara's home, a place where they could talk without fear of being overheard. As night fell, he drove to the park, his heart racing with every mile. When he arrived, the air was thick with tension, and the shadows seemed to dance ominously among the trees. He stepped out of his car and scanned the area, his instincts on high alert. Moments later, a figure emerged from the darkness. Jake. Ethan Caldwell, Jake sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. What a surprise. Let's cut the crap, Jake. I'm here for Clara and those kids. You need to leave them alone, Ethan demanded, standing firm. Jake chuckled darkly, his posture relaxed. And what if I don't? You think you can intimidate me? You're just a rich kid playing hero. Ethan clenched his fists, rage bubbling to the surface. You don't know what you're messing with. I will protect them, even if it means going through you. Jake took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. You think you're the knight in shining armor? You don't know who you're really dealing with. Just then, a flicker of recognition crossed Ethan's face. What do you mean? Jake smirked, the corners of his mouth twisting into a sinister grin. You've been playing the part of the hero, but you don't know the whole story. Maybe you should ask Clara about her brother. Ethan's heart dropped as the realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Brother? Yes, Ethan. I'm her brother, the one who left her to fend for herself. The one who knows all her weaknesses, Jake taunted, his voice low and menacing. And now, I'm back to reclaim what's mine. The world around Ethan blurred as he processed this shocking revelation. Clara had a brother. And this was him. You're the real monster here, Ethan spat, disgust dripping from his words. You're the reason she's been suffering all these years. Jake only laughed, the sound echoing in the dark. You think you can save her? You don't know the depths of my power over her. In that moment, Ethan knew he had to act. No more games, Jake. This ends tonight. As the tension escalated and the shadows closed in, Ethan steeled himself for whatever was to come, ready to protect Clara and her daughters at any cost. The battle lines were drawn, and he would not back down.